Hi there, welcome to episode 1 of PolicyWise Season 3. My name is Mehek, and today on PolicyWise, my co-hosts Michael, Demi, and Ellie will be together for the very first time at Youth Leadership Institute's office in Fresno. The crew, minus me, will discuss their thoughts on politicians, ignorance in the 21st century, and even school dances. So bring out your headphones, find a comfy seat, relax, and enjoy.
Can I start it off and be like, welcome to PolicyWise IRL?
Wait, I-R-L.
Jesus. What is your favorite high school dance?
Oh, I can't answer that.
Or like,
Winter formal.
why is that your favorite?
Because my prom sucked. Because I was princess one year.
Were you really?
My freshman year was all downhill from there.
Wait, what's your favorite dance?
Homecoming.
Homecoming? Which year?
My sophomore year.
Okay.
Why?
Because freshman year, I was still like a little baby.
Yeah.
Like new to it.
You don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Didn't know what I was doing. Sophomore year, super fun. Then they started renovating the convention center.
Oh.
So we had to go to this like terrible motel.
Oh my gosh.
Like out in the suburbs. And it was like such a long line to get in. And there was like so packed, there was like sweat on the, it was like terrible.
Oh. We still had fun. I mean,
Yeah.
the year after.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about you?
Mine, junior year. Okay, so they only did this dance once at my high school. It was at Pharaoh's Lost Kingdom. Splash Kingdom. It's called Splash
It
Kingdom
was like
now.
a water park?
Yeah, in
Oh.
Redlands.
Okay.
And so I don't know what was the impetus for having
Yeah.
this.
Was there a lot of like synchronized swimming?
It was a dance. At least probably 1,000 people.
Okay.
And it was all 3 high schools like coming together all years, like freshman through senior.
Wow.
It was a really big high school dance and it was so much fun. I don't know, I feel like regular high school dances, like you know a lot of the people there.
Yeah.
And it was like you get to meet these people from other schools and like,
Wow. What'd you wear?
I don't remember what I wore.
Come
Oh,
on.
come on
You
now.
know, I
You
was
know
a
what
junior
you
in high school. I do
wore.
not know what I wore. I'm so sorry.
It's your screensaver. Come on.
What's a screensaver?
It's him.
I literally have not changed it since I got my phone.
Oh.
Yeah, it's the stock one. It used to be me and my siblings, so I should probably
Oh,
change it
cute.
back. Sorry, sisters.
Can I change my answer for favorite dance?
Yeah.
We had barn dances at our school. Yeah.
Line dancing?
Yes.
Oh my
And
God.
it was awesome. It was great.
That is great.
Yeah.
Where'd you grow up again?
Arroyo Grande.
Mm-hmm.
It was
Okay.
super fun. Yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Welcome to PolicyWise. We are on season 3. We've been doing this for a while now. I'm Michael,
I'm Demi.
I'm Ellie.
and we are in the YLA office in Fresno.
Why?
Getting together and recording for the first time.
In person.
Yeah, and actually seeing each other for the first time in person. It's the first time
Yeah.
Ellie and I have met.
First time Demi and I have seen each other in years.
Yeah.
Since the student government days.
Back in the day.
Back in the day, making me feel old.
Reminiscing.
I just
So-
turned 23 and I need a walking stick now.
Speaking of not that. Speaking of back in the student government days, today we're going to be talking about politicians, and particularly talking about the pros and cons about certain types of politicians, things that we look for in our ideal politician. But first, before we get started, I want to ask if you can name some politicians who best represent your political favorite.
So I feel like each one, at least for me, each one is for like a different reason, a different purpose. The one that I think first sparked my political interest and made me like turn on the TV with the interest of politics was Barack Obama. Barack Obama was the politician of our generation. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about that. I was like 8 years old. When he was elected.
Okay, to be fair, I was 10. I was for sure in like fifth grade.
That's not how that.
It was
that's
2000.
not-
No, it was
not
2008. I was born in 1998. I was 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was 6.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, I was 6 then.
So you're good. I must have also been 10 then.
Yeah, we didn't know what politics was. Like, you just
Yeah.
watch TV, and for me, it was just like that black guy that's coming on is saying some stuff that's making me feel some sort of way. Like, I don't even know what he's referring to, but I'm with it. That's also when I learned, like, the difference in ideologies, because it was like, oh, you might watch like MSNBC and like the commentators are really cheering this person. You switch it over to Fox and it's like, oh, they don't like him. And I did not understand why. So Barack Obama, I think, is the one that first like kind of set the standard for what a politician is. I do remember George Bush, but I wasn't invested. I wasn't invested the way I was, I think, into Obama.
You're like a 9-year-old. You're like, I just can't get with it.
Yeah.
I remember it would be, I was in like, and be like, one girl would be like, my mom likes Hillary Clinton. I'd be like, oh yeah, well, my dad likes Barack Obama. So really had no
Starting
idea
from
what we
group
were
drama.
talking about. No, literally.
What about you?
Ooh, well, my whole thing is like environmentalism.
Henry David Thoreau.
Who even is that?
The pond, Walden Pond.
I was thinking the existentialist.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, yeah. I think
Oops.
not a politician.
Okay, fair enough.
Not a politician. You know, like AOC. We'll get into that later.
We'll get into
though.
that.
Yeah. Ed Markey has been big.
Ed Markey.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Like Green New Deal. I mean,
Yeah.
like
Senator Markey, right?
Yeah.
Wow. I just never thought of Senator Markey as notable, but I see that.
he is an environmental stuff.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Bernie.
Oh,
Classic.
Yeah.
Classic.
Feel the burn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that gives y'all a pretty good idea of my politics.
I felt the burn really hard in 2016.
Did you?
Yeah, really hard in 2016.
Yeah.
I was like, I
didn't
participated in a t-shirt making Feel the Burn.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I actually saw him in person. Okay, fun fact. This is my first political event in my life. It was senior year of high school. And it was literally, I think I saw like a tweet while I was bored in class saying that Bernie Sanders was coming to San Bernardino, which is like 20 minutes away from my high school. And so I was sitting there texting my friends, like, are we going to go? Like, could we go?
Yeah.
We ended up going right after school to San Bernardino. And it was a super long line. Like, my first political event, people were passing out stuff. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm about to see like a politician that's been on TV or whatever. We get like inside the venue and we're like in the crowd. A guy in a suit like walks up to us and is like, do y'all want to be on stage behind Bernie?
No way.
No way.
Yeah. And we were like, yeah, duh. Like we thought he was joking. And he literally led us to the backstage with like a bunch of other people. And I was on stage behind Bernie Sanders.
No way.
Yeah, there's a little photo of me holding, I still have the sign that I was holding because they give us all signs to hold.
Yeah.
But he was like a good like 5 feet away from me. And
Whoa.
yeah.
Hillary Clinton came to Sac City College.
Oh,
I
really?
didn't get in,
That's okay.
but she was there.
Snoop Dogg worked at this that I was at. I used to work at this concert venue, and he was there, and I was like, from me to Ellie. And I was like, I could tackle Snoop Dogg. And it was really inspirational. And
I can
tackle Snoop Dogg.
I didn't.
Oh, Snoop Dogg, my
I'm
favorite
glad.
politician.
Yeah.
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 He's on the, actually, Mount Rushmore. You didn't see? Yeah. New edition.
I have
Mount Rushmore 2.0.
Interesting. Who would be on your Mount Rushmore?
Ooh. Okay.
I don't know if I like anyone enough for that.
Barack Obama for sure.
Michael,
Thank you for the
Demi,
Yeah.
Jared.
Imagine our new logo is our faces on Mount Rushmore.
That would actually be really cool. I actually think, and this is a controversial one, I think, especially in the Black community, but I would put Abraham Lincoln up there. And people would say like that he didn't actually have the full intention of freeing the slaves, that he didn't actually have the Black people's best interest at heart. And I can see that, but then I also think that there is something to say about being able to like
seize the day.
right, like
Yeah.
to sign your name on a document that no other president was willing to do. Like he was willing to do it.
Yeah.
Whether or not it was because of the war, whether or not it was this and that, like he was willing to sit there and be like, I am going to sign the Emancipation Proclamation. We have to understand that at that time, like that was radical. That was radical.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why he got assassinated. I'll just leave it at that. But I think that like doing something like that was as groundbreaking, led to his death, which was extremely unfortunate. But like people, I think, look over that fact that he did something actually insane at the time.
Okay, so I want to get into a couple things there. The first one is, okay, so you mentioned, okay, it's something groundbreaking. That's what like sets him apart. For your ideal politician, do you want someone who is able to like move the current script or someone who's about to turn it all on its head? And I'll just like end the question there because and there's a lot of consequences to each, I personally feel, but I want to know your preference.
Turn it on its head.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the middle. I think like someone who's willing to turn the corner. Does that make sense? Like,
the corner on the script.
so like to do like a quick little swerve, like
Okay.
like a curve, because I and we can absolutely get into this, but I think when it comes to like political change, that sometimes the means or the end do not justify the means. And so it might be a good idea, like in the long run, to like flip it on its head. But how many people's lives would you be affecting in a negative way by flipping it on its head? Even though like you want that outcome, but that process might do a lot more damage than you might think. And so I think like having the end goal in sight, but then doing it in a smooth way.
Okay, so I've been thinking about this a lot too, and it's easier talking in the abstract, but being like, okay, is there a way that we can completely flip the situation around? And then, like, still be able to, I want to completely get rid of all fossil fuels. Is there a way that we can provide for the economic consequences of that in some way, while also making sure that we're progressing in that way? Like, do you think that that's a possibility?
Yeah, I mean, it's like transitioning to a clean energy system and like making sure people who are currently working in the fossil fuel industry get training to then become workers within the green energy system. So like that's what a transition like that would look like ideally. So like you're still supplying for all of those people who would be out of work normally if you just like completely shut down the fossil fuel industry without any replacement. So there is a transition there, but like it does take the initial mindset of like, no, we're like totally changing this whole thing.
Yeah.
Like you are still like flipping the whole script, but you are making sure that you're like reaching that end point in a way that's like still, like you said, meeting all the meeting all the needs of the present.
Do you think there's do you think that we should be providing like extra financial compensation for anything that we target right now as being non-sustainable? So like right now you're talking about job retaining. Should we be like putting investment, like should we be identifying those things and putting in money into those people who are currently in those systems? Or like, what are your thoughts on that?
What do you mean by that?
So like right now she was saying you were going to, people who are in the fossil fuel industry will provide them with like job training so they can adapt to whatever our new systems are.
Right.
Do you think that we should be like directly targeting anything like that which we see as like unsustainable in the long run, and like targeting those jobs like across the world realistically, and like providing those people with like financial compensation? Should we have warnings on people who are like training for those jobs currently? Like, what do you think is like the proper way of actually going about that?
Yeah, I mean, like that should start, like we need to be putting money there. Like obviously you can't boost up a green energy industry without like workers who can actually do that. And like those workers should be people who would be out of a job because they work in the oil industry. So like their money should be going there right now. Like we should be funding training. We should be in the process of transitioning right now. And that goes for many different industries, I'd say.
I'd agree with that. I think it's like you have to, I think the ideal option would be reskilling. Like, you know, pay for their 2 to 4 year education to reskill into a different industry. And that way, at least in some sort of way, you make a smoother transition and you're not putting a bunch of people in unemployment.
Totally. Yeah, totally. It needs to be equitable.
Exactly.
Yeah, it is interesting. Like, do you think there's any argument for not reskilling, but just like paying people out and then reskilling incoming people so that no one has to go through the process of like getting reskilled?
Would they know that they would get a payout? Like, and I say that because there might be people wanting to push that industry further,
right?
Knowing that they would get paid if they were there.
Oh,
Not that that's.
I mean,
that wouldn't
as
be a
long
big
as they don't
chunk
listen to the podcast.
I don't know if I would need to think about a payout a little bit.
Yeah, no, me too. Thanks for answering. I don't have an answer. Yeah.
Wait, let's go back to the AOC point.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that we get back to this because there's been some controversy lately.
Yeah. Met Gala. We all saw the dress.
Any thoughts?
Did it fit the theme?
I think I've always just had like a really difficult time like idolizing anyone. And so even AOC, like as much as I think she is so wonderful for so many reasons, I can't even say that I've like followed her close enough to have a hard judgment. It's one of those things where I think it's really easy to criticize politicians. Like it's so much easier to criticize politicians than to be in a political position, definitely. And that's not to say that they shouldn't be critiqued. Like they obviously should be. And I think like this wasn't her best. It wasn't her best moment.
Right. Yeah.
But that being said, like I want to see how she goes from here. I'm not like, oh, that's it. You know?
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
No, I feel like it marks a really like interesting point in how we deal with politicians in terms of like how we view them. Maybe it's just my own personal experience on social media. Like you scroll through TikTok or whatever, maybe just me because my algorithm. We all know how that works. But it's like, oh my God, AOC, like AOC this, AOC that, or whatever. And there is a lot of idolization. I feel like that can happen. What I noticed with the tax the rich dress, it was like flipped on its head. It was like, oh, AOC totally screwed up. Like she was never the person we should have like, you know, put in that place, you know, like just like totally a different narrative that started happening. And I feel like it raises a really interesting point in like how we view politicians and if we leave them the room to make mistakes and still be people that we support.
Right.
I think it's for me, and I feel like I've spent a good amount of time around politicians.
Right, yeah.
Like if you're, I think before I had time with them and like kind of got to see how they are as people, like it is a lot easier to criticize them, like the person on TV who's doing something that you disagree with. Now I'm just kind of like, yeah, you probably had something different in your head. It played out a little differently. Like shake it off, get back into the game. That would be my advice to AOC. Like learn from the experience and keep it going.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Let me just preface and say that my belief is that the only perfect politician is you. You're never going to agree with another human being 100%. That is just completely unrealistic, especially in the United States.
Wait, so pitch yourself.
No.
Future governor.
You want me to build my opposition today, Demi?
In this moment.
No. I say that to say, like, you know, you might have someone that you agree with 95%, 98%, 99%. And there was a lot of people, I think, that agreed with AOC to the 99.9%. And then they saw that 0.01% moment and were like, oh. And it's like, yeah, like that's humanity.
Well, it's interesting because it wasn't even disagreeing with the message.
Yeah.
It was wasn't even disagreeing on like a political viewpoint. It was disagreeing on like the situation and the context and the way in which that message was presented.
Right.
You know? Right. Like it's one thing to like believe and like present the idea of tax the rich, and it's another to like go and do that by putting it on a dress like at the Met Gala, like $35,000 entrance fee, you know, like bunch of celebrities, like while there's protesters like being harassed outside, you know? Like
and like obviously some of the backlash was like, oh, she's making so much money now as a congresswoman. So what are your thoughts on that? How much do you think people should be making?
I think politicians should be paid more. I do.
Interesting.
And I know that this is a hot take. No. This is, people are going to disagree with me.
It is a tricky, it's a really difficult one. The thing is, I'm like, how much should people actually be making? Like, what's a reasonable amount of money? Because like there's certain people who I'm like, okay, if someone's gonna make that much, I hope it's this person, you know, like this happens a lot with like, I don't know, with like university presidents. Sometimes I'm like, they're making so much money and then they're working 24/7. I'm like, oh, gosh, okay, well, I mean, it's better that they're making that money than someone else. And so I do think it's like an interesting conversation about how much someone's time is worth, especially if they're trying to do good.
I mean, you've got to have it be worth it. Like you need to have people who are going to be like able and wanting to pursue that career path, or that's another competition, career politician. But, you know, like who would be willing to take that job, like want to make change, but then like if they couldn't make enough money from that, you know, like we need to be able to actually incentivize people to want to become politicians. But I think that can also lead to the problem of electability.
I'm recording, but honestly, my
what was I saying? Where do I go?
I wish I remembered. I'm so
sorry.
No,
I was talking about getting into electability.
Electability, yes.
Do I just start off from there?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. Can I go?
Ellie, how do you feel about electability?
Oh, electability. So funny you should say that. We should be able to incentivize people to want to become politicians or like become representatives, right? Like you can't pay them nothing. Like then no one's going to want to pursue that. Few people.
And let me
jump in.
I don't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Were you done with your thought?
I was gonna get into electability, but
I was just gonna say that there are a lot of states that have part-time legislatures. In which they're like Texas, for example, their elected officials barely get paid. And that's
how's Texas doing right now?
We're a California-based podcast.
Austin's doing really well. Austin. Austin's pulling it.
Anyway,
Oh, jeez.
the reason why I bring that up as we're kind of talking
Yeah.
about the pay scale is that basically you have a bunch of people in office who need, like, bold need to be doing something else in order to live.
Right.
Are you getting elected officials that are putting their time into getting to know the community, into, all of these things? But please get back into electability. I just want to put that out there.
Well, I mean, I think that electability, once people are career politicians, they like don't want to lose that salary that they're making. Like that is their livelihood. Then you're worried about maintaining that job and getting elected again. And I think that can sometimes change how you're willing to act in that space. And like maybe you won't be as controversial or be as aggressive in the type of policy initiatives you're pursuing because you're trying to be more middle of the road, so you'll get elected again. If you think that that's going to be able to get you elected, and I think that's where we can lose something, and we can like have people who aren't actually accurately representing the people who got them elected in the first place, like
So many points.
no, I want to hear it. That was my point.
Okay, so I've so many points because I agree with you.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
Like I think that there's a lot, especially in the House of Representatives, because they have 2-year terms and there's no term limit. And so
That's another term limits. Okay.
term limits,
Keep
yeah.
going.
So you have basically a bunch of people who are
Right.
there and have to campaign basically every year. They're fundraising, then they campaign. Those are their 2 cycles. Yes, there's an issue of electability there. I guess my question to you, I have a lot of questions, but a question to you is, how do you discern between someone who is trying to represent the diversity of their constituency, and that being the reason why they're middle of the road, and someone who's middle of the road because they want to win their election?
Right.
But I think that I can bring up, so like I learned this in a class once where there's every elected official like lands on a scale that is like, they are on one side, they represent their community and they're doing a great job of that. On the other side, they're elected because they are very bold in what they ask for and what they do, and their community likes that. An example, for example, is Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
Like, Vermont's not a super liberal state at all, but he wins almost every election with so far, and because the community that he represents likes the way that he does whatever the heck he's gonna do, no matter what. And like, nobody's really gonna stop him from doing that, and that's something that people value. And I'd say something quite similar of Nancy Pelosi. Does she represent San Francisco? But is she good at what she does? And do people like vote for her because of that? So I think that there's the ebb and flow there, I guess.
I feel like it's into like a very like a deeper issue. Like I think my ideal politician at this moment would be someone who's going to go in and fix the incentives. So like I don't really care what else they do at this moment. I just want them to fix the incentives of what makes someone a politician, and I want them to like restructure it and like get at those issues. So if someone was in there, like I would want, like, even if they got there and they used a bunch of donor money, but they went in and they fixed campaign finance issues. I mean, obviously that like it's deeper than this. It's not that easy, but like someone who like really, really tackled that stuff head on, who maybe made it so that we had less people per district. Cause I also think that's a big problem with representation, is like at the end of the day, you need career politicians in some level to be that dedicated to represent a massive district like that. Because who could ever possibly do that as a part-time job when you're representing like thousands and thousands of people?
Right.
Whereas like realistically, if you had someone, like if you could treat that job as if you're treating it like another kind of like council that you're on or a board that you were on, because you know the community really well and you've been there and you've worked there your whole life and like you understand it, and you didn't have to spend that much time doing it, but you know the people so well because you're not representing that many people, and you've also just like lived it, then I think they would do a much better job than what we currently have going on. So like at this point, like clearly what I'm after is like a policy change, but I think it speaks to the idea that like whoever any of our perfect politicians are going to be, I think it's going to be really dependent on when this person's going to be elected. So I don't know how y'all feel, but that's my thoughts.
Yeah, it's hard because like you want someone who's going to be dedicated and like can build up that experience like in a job, but then you also have so many people in our government who have had that job for so many years, and then they've like aged out. I feel like you're no longer like in tune with the majority of people in my mind. Maybe I'm just saying that because I'm like young and I'm just surrounded by a bunch of other young people, but like I don't think there's very many people in our government who are like adequately representing my viewpoint and like what I want to see and like what a lot of other young people want to see.
Right.
So it's sort of like, how do we do that where like people can have like the experience that they need and like be able to like actually build themselves like into government, you know, like secure themselves in that position while still making sure that we have people who like are aging with the with the correct population, if that makes sense. I feel like I didn't phrase that right, but
I think where the system is broken here, because what is supposed to happen is that when the person is no longer representing the community, they get voted out.
Yeah.
Right.
That is what is supposed to occur. But because of the way that things work nowadays, it's like once you've been in your job long enough, like you have a hold on all the donors, you have a hold on all the media, you have a hold on all of these things that come into the electability portion. Because of the way that our elections are structured, we don't have a vacation day for voting.
No, it's true.
And so if we're thinking about the California recall, like part of what put that on the ballot was just that, you know, you did have people with money, like being able to pay for basically changing people's mind.
Right.
It would like, I would say that's occurring on both sides. Like,
huge.
Of course, in California, like the Democrats are going to be very much so on top of that. But then a lot of what was funding the recall in California was big donors that are able to pay for a bunch of people to be on the streets collecting signatures.
Yeah. Sorry, not to interrupt. There is like a lot of discussion about kind of like what systemic changes need to happen in order to like redo this. And there was this thing that they did at my last university amongst one of the departments where they were
Which university was that?
I was at the London School of Economics. But go Dogs, Fresno State. No, I'm just kidding. They were both good. But yeah, so they did something in, it was my roommate's apartment. She was in like the development department. And they were like, look, we need student representatives. All of y'all are qualified enough to be here. And so instead of it being a popularity contest and like duking it out, we're just going to like randomly select some of you. And like, that was it. And it was like a really big moment for me where I was like, oh no, oh wait, yeah? Like, is that a good idea? Like, I can't really decide like what's good and not what's not. And the idea was that they would like cycle out. And so you'd have like everyone doing it at some point. I mean, obviously you can't cycle out like everyone in the United States, but I do think it's like an interesting conversation of being like, should there be, like a minimum qualification, which gets you in some kind of like raffle, or
but then who's defining those qualifications?
Yes, Demi's about to go all around the world and make sure. No,
it is interesting, and like obviously, I think that would be up to the voters. So say we're doing like state by state or like local government. The voters would put on maybe like a proposition of like what that might look like and who needs to be qualified for that position. They would vote for those qualifications, and then someone was selected at random who has those qualifications. I mean, there's so many issues, and like that's not gonna like work as well as it will in like a 30-person seminar. But I just think it's interesting to like rethink these ideas. And there's also this thing called like ranked voting now.
Yeah, there is.
Y'all know better than I do, so
I don't know what you do, but I know of it.
Yeah, which I do think is like an interesting idea and something that we should consider. There's also ideas of, you know, if you're in a certain occupation, like you're a teacher, then your vote counts twice as much on a proposition that has to do with the education system than someone else, and stuff like that. So I think it's worth considering more than we have. But that's pretty much all I can say on it as of now.
Is the general population qualified to vote?
I think it's so sad that we have to even question it. Because I personally think it's such a failure of our education system that we even have to get in this conversation. Like, we have to get into this fight. Like, oh my gosh, how long are we in school every day? Like, we're at school 30 hours a week. There's no reason that we shouldn't have the most wonderful citizens in the world. Like, what is that? I get like so worked up about it. Like, that should be like the main subject of discussion once you get in high school. Like, I didn't get my first politics class till I was a senior in high school. And I had already I was studying criminology, you know? And I figured out about policy, and I was like, oh, what? Like, you mean these people are controlling stuff all the time? Like, oh, you mean like I can actually change the circumstances that are like upsetting people every single day? I don't know. I just get worked up.
I wanted to be a vet. I wanted to be a veterinarian.
Me too.
Up until my government class in high school. And I was like, hold up.
I don't know when I grew out of it.
Yeah. But I think what you're raising is, what both of you are raising are really good points. It's a great question. I think right now, thank you. I think right now it's like, especially in the age of mass information, we have an episode on that, by the way. In the age of mass information, disinformation, like right now, our education system is not keeping up with the pace of technology.
Yeah.
And so you have a lot more misinformation out there, and you have people who haven't been exposed enough to the world of politics and government and what to look for, what to not, how things work and how things change, to be able to sift through, the mud, basically. I do want to get back to why politicians should get paid more, because I feel like I just dropped that and then did not explain that.
Yeah.
So the reason why it's not like I'm over here like politicians should be making millions of dollars.
Michael's like, I need to secure my future.
Well,
like I need to secure my
back. It's okay. So part of that is that I'm actually like if you see really like in any other industry, the people who are the best at what they do, look at any industry, they're getting paid a lot. If you're really good at creating policy, your best interest is not to go into government. Period, point blank. You're going into nonprofit. You're going into advocacy. You're going into research. Like, why would you go into government? You're about to take a massive pay cut, and everybody's going to hate you, and you're still stuck by gridlock. So what are you doing? So what you have basically, and you look at a lot of these nonprofit, or maybe not a lot of nonprofits, but the larger, really politics focused areas where you have the experts in politics and policy. The experts will almost never be in the governing positions because why would they waste their time?
How much do we want experts though? How much do we want it so that everyone can be experts, I know this is getting back to the real problem, but I want everyone to have the education that's good enough where they can be the politician, And then we need that. Yeah. Sorry.
That'd be ideal.
Yeah.
No,
I'm living in a different world, but that would be good.
Demi spent time in London and is coming back a whole different, no, no, but I think about so much about, I've met really good people. I'm like, why aren't they going to government? And they're just like, what do you mean? I'm trying to set up my children. I'm trying to have a quality lifestyle. And I think the way that politicians currently work in the US, the vast majority of them, it's if you are a pretty good person or good at what you do, you won't go into that.
Right.
And I think that there has to be some degree of financial incentive beyond the campaign fundraising or even the gifts that you get from people. If I'm, for example, on the up and up and I'm like, you know what, I could become a congressman, or I can go down this other route, or actually let me become a congressman. And since I know what's going to be coming down the pipeline, I can actually just be trading stocks on the side, in which we have a lot of politicians doing that because they are not in my view, I think part of it is just greed. You're always going to have greed. But I think that there is a set of politicians that are just simply not making as much money as maybe they were in the past, as maybe their family needs or wants. And so they're just let me go down these other routes of making money, which often comes through corruption. Yeah. And so I think a lot of the corruption that we see in the United States forms of governments is money focused because we don't pay them a lot of money.
Yeah. But would that issue end, let's say you raise your salary, big oil still's okay, we can still give you more than that.
That's true.
Does it end?
It doesn't end. I think it gets better. Hopefully.
Also, what's your how much right now?
Oof, that's a really tough question. I actually do think, though, this is the point that I was about to raise.
Yeah.
Is I think that however much the person is making should be I think very much so ideally would be in some sort of range around how much the community that they're representing makes. And the reason why I say that is because whether or not you're a congressperson from Kansas or you're a congressperson in dead middle of San Francisco, where you have the worst housing market in the world, you're getting paid the exact same.
Yeah.
And so I think that there has to be something around that where we have to understand that there's different scales.
Not a one size fits all.
Not one size fits all. And so maybe...
One size fits all never works.
What if politicians are paid the amount of money that they made at their last position?
That's horrible. So we were just talking about AOC, who was a bartender.
Yeah. Then you get only.
So you're paying AOC bartender money?
Okay.
You go pay Paul Ryan $1 million a year?
Gosh, you could have spent $35K to get through the
Thank you. Okay, so
would
y'all ever run?
I would.
And
I don't know if I could do that.
And what do you think would make you a good politician?
Well, as I said before,
The campaigning starts now.
I know, right? The best politician is you. I just feel like,
Thank you, Michael.
oh my goodness, that me. I think that it's like to some degree, and I think a lot of what we've discussed today comes out of this. I don't trust other people to do it as well as I would.
See, I have the opposite feeling.
Really?
I will, okay, so I don't know. Going back to my student government days, I obviously I see it as a means to an end. So if I felt like the agenda that I really believed in wasn't getting pushed forward in any way, and that was the best way for me to push it forward, potentially, and if I also felt that no one else could push it forward any better. So it's just like a default of being like, oh my gosh, if I'm I trust myself enough to be the best person in that job right now. And I think that's really hard for me to think about right now, because I know clearly, at this moment in time, there's not a role right now that I think that I'm more qualified for than the single person who's going for that role. That being said, potentially in the future, I would love to be knowledgeable enough to be able to do that and feel confident enough and push forward an agenda like that. As of now, my hope is that there'll be people who are in a better position, and I also think it'll be it'll depend on what's needed at the time. I also think I should step back for identity politics positions. I would happily step back and be behind the scenes if I felt like I could advance it, or someone who had the identity that needed to be pushed forward had a similar policy stance as I do. I would be yeah, let's get it. You know what I mean? So I just feel it'll just depend on.
I'm 100%.
Yeah. So it just depend on the times. Ellie?
Oh, what would make me a good politician?
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Would you do it?
Yeah.
Would I do it? I've been thinking about this a lot.
Yeah.
I'm a sophomore in undergrad. I've been trying to figure out my path forward. I don't know. I all my extracurricular stuff is politics based, but now I'm in those spaces. I'm I'm enjoying this. Could I do this my whole life? I don't think I could.
It's so taxing, isn't it?
I don't think I could.
But why not? Sorry.
I just think
she wouldn't get paid enough.
Yeah, I wouldn't get paid enough. If we match salaries, $300 a month as a politician.
Dang.
Not worth it. Your idea was bad. Just kidding.
Terrible. Maybe it's a limit. So it's if you're making more than that,
I would set the limit.
Yeah. There's a minimum.
But I still think. Sorry to cut you off.
No.
I still feel like low income people who are representing the community really well should still be getting paid to that.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Oh, of course.
Well then
So
it wouldn't be.
then it wouldn't be.
My thing was more my idea was to put a cap on people who are making gazillions or want to make a ton of money, who go into it just for money. It's a bad idea.
Do you think there's a lot of people that go
It's not wasting our time.
If you're trying to make money, would you go into politics?
No.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
I'm just very frustrated with our political system, and I don't think I could operate within that. I don't think I'm someone who has the ability to collaborate and cooperate with people who just have viewpoints that I feel are disrespectful to my life and my views. It's not just disagreeing, fundamentally are disrespectful, and I just don't think I could cooperate with those types of people.
Okay, so I agree with that.
Yeah.
Very much so. Which is why I'm not into federal politics. But if you
local
look at the
politics,
state,
you
right,
can make a big change.
You
But I
can.
think, that's a whole other thing too. Of you look at something like environmental issues, like climate change, that's huge global issue, and it often feels oh, you can't do this on the local level. The issue's too big to do on the local level, but that's why you need to do it on the local level, because you're not gonna solve a big issue like that, on its own, just on some big overarching system,
Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't think that I can see myself. Maybe I'll change my mind, but I can't really see myself as a politician.
You might have heard the quote before, and I'm gonna say it again. I didn't say it before today. I'm just gonna repeat a quote that I think many of us have heard before, which is if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And my belief is that if there's someone, like, I just don't think that there will be many people like me at the table. And so if I have the ability, the capability, the capacity to not only like bring about change, but to also be a role model for the community.
Yeah.
Like, there have been 11 Black senators ever in the history of the country. There have been 4 Black governors ever.
Yeah.
I think only 2 of them got elected. The other 2 got it like as being lieutenant governor and like, yeah, the governor. So like, when I think about that, I'm like, okay, like there are a lot of spaces in government where people like me have never even walked it, let alone a Black immigrant, right? Like let alone that. So anyway, I just feel like I don't see that happening. It's like, okay, if I can do it and I'm able to, this is what's gonna happen. Like, you know, I'll take the sacrifice, I'll take the L, because that's not a fun job to have.
It's not taking.
We've been missing Mehek this episode.
We have empty seat.
Empty seat.
Speaking of seats at the table. There's an empty seat at the table.
Yeah, we're not eating her though.
Here.
Oh.
She's not on the menu. She's at home. She's not on the menu.
She could not make it with us to Fresno.
Unfortunately.
But we'll be joining us in future episodes.
You heard her on the intro. She's here. She's with us in spirit.
Yep.
We love you. We love you. Next round table.
Yeah.
I have so many thoughts. I feel like we're gonna have to do another one of these. Maybe season 4. Yeah. We're gonna have to come back and revisit some of these topics.
And send in your questions that you would like us to talk about on the topic. Welcome to our first round table discussion.
IRL.
IR.
L. Did I even do that the right direction?
I think you went the right. I don't know.
I don't know which one is correct. I don't know my left from my right.
I was pointing out from that. It's the start of season 3.
Welcome to season 3 of PolicyWise.
1, 2.
Debbie, what are you doing? Oh, Debbie.
Bye.
This was PolicyWise, an intergenerational podcast by Youth Leadership Institute focused on bringing young people into the policy conversation. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at PolicyWisePod. If you have any questions or suggestions for discussion topics, please email us at policywise@yli.org. And stay tuned for upcoming episodes.